Welcome to Challenger Deep, athletes rising above adversity, where we explore stories of athletes who faced their lowest points and risen to incredible heights. Did you know Challenger Deep is the lowest point in the ocean, making it the lowest point on Earth? When you're at your lowest, the beautiful truth is there's nowhere to go but up. We all face adversity, but how we choose to respond defines who we become. Join hosts Jeff Heggie and Tammy Matheny as we share powerful stories of everyday athletes' resilience, growth, and triumph. These stories will inspire you to rise above your challenges and reach new heights. Let's dive in.
We are excited to have everyone back with us this week, and I am particularly excited to introduce our guest, Heather Gage. I have known Heather for years and respect her as a person, as a friend, as a coach, as a tennis player. So she is going to talk a little bit about her journey and adversity as a collegiate tennis player for the Air Force Academy and all the stuff that she's doing now. So Heather, welcome and tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Hey, sure. Thanks for having me. Very excited and honored to be on this. Tammy, you and I have been working together, gosh, I don't know, 4 or 5 years now, and I always walk away from time with Tammy just better. Like there's something, I take a tidbit or something, I feel more whole. So, but yeah, Heather, I grew up in San Diego, so it was very great environment for a lot of sports. I was a multi-sport athlete growing up, but I was a pretty decent tennis player and got recruited by a lot of different places. Long story short, because every recruiting journey has its ups and downs, and mine certainly did. But I ended up at the Air Force Academy, and so my path has been unique to the fact that I went to the Air Force Academy and I've served in the Air Force, but I've also had the opportunity to coach different colleges and universities, and I've coached internationally in different academies and locally in high school and all over the place. So somehow through my journey, I've constantly fallen back into the world of coaching. I've always had a foot in that space. So when I was taking a step back from career-wise aspect of things to raise my kids, and the kids were young and I wanted to be home with them, I was ready to get back into working, and I had different opportunities present themselves, and I just felt like I needed to be in the sports world. So that's where I landed, which I'm coming up on 6 years, been working with the NCSA college recruiting, and it's been really great because I've just have this underlying passion for helping guide kids to that next level and guide student athletes to playing college sports, because it was such a door opener for me. And I never realized it through all of that time with, I was going through it, I was in the thick of it, and I will talk a little bit about my experience there in a moment, but I didn't realize how my life and who I would become was so critical and dependent on that time as a college athlete. And so now being in this space on the other side of it, and the recruiting side, and getting to interact with student athletes on a regular basis, I'm seeing that this is what's going to shape their life, and this is who they're going to become one day. They're going to use those life lessons, and that's what I've done. So that was the long-winded version of how I got from San Diego to working remote for a company that helps student athletes.
This episode of Challenger Deep, Athletes Rising Above Adversity podcast is brought to you by doTERRA, the world's leader in essential oils and wellness products. Ready to fuel your health and recovery like a pro? Listeners of this podcast can get 25% off doTERRA products and supplements. Head to www.confidentathleteprogram.com/doTERRA and start your journey to peak performance today.
Well, I know you know what Challenger Deep is about, the lowest point in the ocean, and because we've talked about that before, and how you raise yourself above that. How do you rise above adversity is kind of the gist of this. And you referenced several in talking, but you've shared with me a story that kind of set the tone for your journey at the Air Force. So I would love for you to dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, my adversity, I guess I think that the Challenger Deep moment is it's a great way to define it, because it was that in going through it, I didn't realize that, whoa, this is my bottom. There was a moment during it that I did, and I'll explain. But one of the things that you have to do when you're a cadet at the Air Force Academy, you have to take a class called Survival Swim. So I had to take this class, and the essence behind it is you should be, we're training to be military officers, and we need to be able to survive different challenges, right? And this one specific to the swimming realm. So the swim aspect wasn't hard for me, but one of the things that you had to do by the end of the semester, you would have to jump off of the 10 meter, which is really high platform, and you're wearing your full uniform, the BDUs, or you jump in, and then you'd swim to the bottom. You have to swim underneath the bulkhead and come out the other side and inflate your uniform and prove that you can survive that challenge. And then there's all these other like swimming tests. Again, swimming wasn't the problem. The heights was. Do not like heights. So every single day you have this chance during the class to get up in the top and practice to jump down and be able to swim under and do all of that part of it. I would get up to the top. I would stand up there, look around, and be like, no, not gonna happen today. Walk myself right back down. And that's about how the entire semester went until the last day. We have to pass this class. You have to finish. The only way you pass is to jump off and do those tasks. And so I get up there, I come back down, I get up there again, I'm waiting on the line. Finally, I'm the very last person. I'm standing on the top of this platform, and just so happened the schedule that I had this class for also lined up with a bunch of all the other athletes. So we had like the football team, we got these Division I athletes, baseball players. Thank God there's no social media back then. They're all now watching me. They've all done, check the box. And I'm standing up there just like freaking out. I'm on the edge, like, I can't do it. I almost get close. Well, one of my teammates was in the class with me, and she's looking like, oh gosh, if Heather doesn't get off this thing, she's gonna fail. If you fail, you can't play. So she runs to the courts and grabs our coach off the court, and our coach comes running over, and she's wearing like a swishy warm-up suit, and she throws her shoes off. She climbs the ladder all the way to the top to come up there with me. And it was, she doesn't like heights either. So it was like this moment where I'm standing up there, I'm like, oh my God, I know I have to do this. I don't know how I'm gonna get off this thing. And she comes, she's like, okay, Heather, if I jump, will you jump right after me? So I'm like, okay. So she launches herself without even thinking. She launches herself into the water, and then she's down there, and I'm like, oh my God, that was so inspiring. I'm gonna go do it. Took me another 5 minutes. Eventually I got myself off of it. And I passed the test, I did all that, and I don't think I fully processed the amount of adversity that was overcoming, because it was like I had this idea in my head that I can't believe I can't jump off this. This is such a weakness. Like, how can I not? I'm a Division I athlete. I'm training to be in the military. I'm doing all this other cool things that people think are really impressive, and I can't jump off of this high dive. So I was more focused on the things I couldn't do. And it was this eye-opening moment, which I reference this a lot. I share the story in different ways, because it was the power of your mind. I got to the point where I literally couldn't even get myself off. I would go to the 5 meter, couldn't get myself off of that. I went off to the regular springboard. I'd get to the edge of that. I mean, that is like 2 feet above the water. And I even got to a point where I couldn't get off the side of the pool. Like, it was so crazy how your mind is so controlled by, it's insane. So all that to say, I ended up getting through that moment, and I had a really great tennis career, and everything was good. But my coach and I talk a lot about it, and she uses the story more than I use the story, because, but she noticed such a transformation in my self-confidence and my ability to like get through a hard thing because I just proved myself that I could do a hard thing. So that was my Challenger Deep moment. And hopefully you followed the whole story, but it's like it was yesterday. It truly was.
One of the things I love about these Challenger Deep moments is they are kind of that epiphany, kind of that aha moment. And that's what I love about all the stories we share in the book is so many people can relate to them. And especially when it's something like heights. I'm not a fan of heights either. So I totally get where you're coming from. But I guess you've used this a lot with the athletes you work with and stuff. How do you instill that in them so that they can see that in themselves, that they can use your experience to help with their own adversity?
I think the first thing is just, I think everyone needs to understand that we all go through it. We might have this thick shell, we might, oh, they're so good. Even you look at professional athletes and you think they're so good and there's no way they get nervous. We all struggle. And I think that's the first part, and being able to share my story of, I mean, as silly as it sounds, to not be able to get off of a diving board, it is, like you said, really relatable. And then it's one of those things where you have to just pull the trigger, right? You can't sit there and dwell and think and dwell again and contemplate. And I don't even know what I was going through my mind. It was just plain fear. And so what I've learned is that when you just rip that Band-Aid off and you say, like, I'm stronger than that fear. Like, that fear is going to help me. You can do it, and I think anyone can do it.
And Heather, you and Jeff and you both know that the power, I believe, in self-talk. And it sounds like there was a moment where that self-talk shifted. And, I like to say that your thoughts create your emotions, and you had this fear because of your thoughts. So what was the shift? And you alluded to it a little bit too, how then it helped propel your career at the Air Force. And so how did that connect us with your self-talk and how much stronger after you were able to overcome this?
Yeah, it was you've said this so many times in different workshops and webinars that we've done together, Tammy, but just flipping the script. And it's more than the fear. Like, I want my goal to happen more than I want to be stuck in this trap of negativity or fear or worry or concern. So it was just flipping the script and like, what do I want to happen in this moment? I want to prove that I can do hard things. And in that moment, I can get off of that thing. My coach can come up there like in her tennis clothes and her fear and just do it. I can do it too.
So after that experience, did you ever jump off of it again?
Not voluntarily.
Well, the reason I ask in my mindset questions that I have people go through on a daily basis is one is what are you going to do today that's going to make you step outside of your comfort zone? Because every time you step out of your comfort zone, the next time it's just that much easier. So that's what I'd like to know. Was it easier the next time you were forced to do it?
Easier, yes. Do I enjoy it? Did it transform me into somebody like a lover of all heights? No. But I do believe, once you prove to yourself that you can do it, there's no reason why you can't do it twice.
One thing that I really want to highlight is your coach and the power of having those models in our life. And so I know we have a lot of coaches on here or parents that listen. So I think that's a great lesson. How would you connect that to what they could use to help their athletes overcome adversity?
As a coach myself, I strive every single day to give and pour into my players as much as my coach poured into me and into my teammates and former and future team, and it wasn't through just coddling and words and things like that. That was not her nature anyway. It was through action, and she shows up. And I think that, sometimes we carry a lot of it as a coach. We carry a lot of that burden of our athletes on our shoulders, and we want to do this for them, or maybe I'm not doing enough for them, or whatever it might be. But in the end, it's just the little things over time that build up, and you show up in the big moments and you show up in the little moments, and it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be as dramatic as jumping off of a 10 meter for one of your athletes. It can be just being that person they turn to with good news or bad news, or just that quick, like, I just need that reassurance from my coach moment.
So I'm going to ask another question, twisting it, that just came to me, and hope I don't throw you off guard. But as I'm thinking, I mean, you have so many lessons that can help so many people out there. And you didn't share your whole background in that you are a mother, not just of one, but a mother. You have this job. You also coach tennis. You are married. And when I am working with a lot of female coaches, one of the biggest challenges is I don't have time to do all this. And I've always been in admiration of that challenge. So I've switched gears completely and talking about a new challenge, but I think you're such a perfect role model for that. And how do you handle all of those challenges collectively?
It's a lot. I think perfect role model is an ambitious phrase. It's hard. There's a lot of constant. I have to constantly remind myself, these are my priorities. This is where my time needs to go, and this is where my energy needs to go in this moment. There's been times where I want to be everything to everyone, and I just simply can't. And so I have to understand and recognize that. And, some things are going to get all of me and some are going to get part of me. And then recognizing a biggest part probably for me over the years is recognizing the different phases of life as a parent too, just, what my kids are going through at different times, and when they need me and how they need me changes. So when they were really little, it looked different. And as they're getting bigger, it looks different. And so I think just a big part is giving myself grace that I'm not going to be perfect, that I'm not going to get it right every single time, and that somebody is probably going to feel a little bit slighted every once in a while here and there. But, at the core of it all, I think people can tell when you are genuine and when you care and when you're pouring into them, even if you aren't pouring in as much as you think you want to or need to. And so when I usually step back and self-assess, and am I where my kids need me to be, number one, my family needs me to be number one, and then from there, what else can I add to my plate? But there's also on that, it's really important to me that I lead by example for my kids. And I want them to see that it's really important to take other people on and to help and pour into them and just spread love. So I think that them seeing me in a coaching role and a working role and in these different capacities is hopefully showing them that, hey, yeah, balance is hard, but it's important. And if you can learn balance over time, you're going to be making more of an impact across more people's lives. And that's, I don't know, I believe that's how we make the world a better place. So
Something that Tammy and I talk about a lot with our athletes is discovering their true purpose, their true why. And it sounds like you've definitely got a purpose and why. How important is that for you to help you do all those different things?
yeah, it's everything. That's how you do it, right? The why is the how. So yeah, if I want to be a role model for my kids, then I'm gonna get it done. They're gonna see a work ethic, they're gonna see passion, they're gonna see me following through on commitments. And if I want to help student athletes, I have to genuinely want to help the student athletes, right? Like I can't just go through the motions. You feel that. So yeah, I definitely think that the why and that there is like that underlying calling when it comes to coaching, right? I mean, I think that, you definitely don't coach for the paycheck. So it's, I always say this, I say it in a lot of different contexts, but it's like coaches want to coach. It's like, go ask your coach the questions they're there because they want to coach. Like they're not just trying to like get another trophy, like hopefully not for me. It's like I played, I did my thing, that's okay. I'm not in this for the trophies. I want to help, I want to give back, so that maybe somebody that I coach can one day give back to somebody and keep that going.
And for those listening, she has won the trophies as well, state championships. So, tell us about one of the biggest adversities that you've witnessed with someone that you've coached.
The ones that come straight to mind, there's two. I've coached the boys and the girls high school team in my local town just over the last couple of years, and well, done it longer than that, but these two came up just recently. One of them in particular, I'll talk a little more than the other, but he literally broke his back. Like he was out, a stress fracture, surgeries, all these things, and that was between his sophomore and junior year. So he comes out on his junior year season and he says, Coach, I don't think I'm going to be able to play at all. Like they said, I'm out for X number. He had already been out all summer long and probably throughout the spring too, the whole year. And he's like, but I still want to be, I still want to remain connected and I want to still be out there. What can I do? And so it's like, well, I want you out there. You're a part of this team, whether you're on the court hitting the ball or you're just there. Like, I want you there. And he showed up in a way that I can't even, it's processed, because I don't remember telling him like, you need to show up and be a leader and you need to show up and be an example and do this and support your teammate. Like he just did that. He was at as many practices as he could be at. He was at pretty much all the matches. And then he was leading off the court and off that environment because he was going to rehab nonstop and PT and doing all the things. So he was able to play towards the end of that season. We eased him back in. We ended up getting him back into the lineup, not as high as he had been. And this is somebody that was playing the top half of the lineup undefeated the year before. So it was especially hard, right? So he ends up having a good wrap up to that season. We lost in the state finals, and then he put the time in all off season, and then his senior year, that's when we won the title, and he was one of the matches that crossed the finish line for us. So it was a really cool full circle moment to see somebody go from literally not knowing if he would be able to play again to winning a title in such a short period of time. And then another on the girls' side, the same type of thing. She was out with a wrist injury, but said the same thing, like, yes, I want you to be here, I want you there. And she led so phenomenally. And just these two examples, I think that anyone dealing with an injury or any other reason that you can't be playing, I think stepping into a leadership role and being a part of it is far and beyond the best thing that you can possibly do, because it wasn't okay, now you're going to slide into the lineup, which both of them did, and take someone's spot that had been playing. It was everybody wanted them to be in that spot. Even the person that was going to be sitting down, they were like so grateful that person, and that doesn't come from someone just being off, doing their rehab and coming back and expecting a spot. It comes from someone that was really heavily involved in being as good of a teammate as possible.
I love those, and those are such inspirational stories. And you've heard me share this, kind of the formula around Challenger Deep and that I use for overcoming adversity is at the center of it, your why, but then you have to be unified, which you just spoke to that of one of the ways they overcame adversity. They have to be focused on the right things, and they have to have that true confidence, not based off results. And I think all of your examples have, again, all of our stories keep showing that formula is how you overcome adversity. You have to stay connected, have to be confident and focused on what you can do, not what you can't do. So amazing stories that you've shared with us, Heather.
There's a lot to be learned from all those. There's one more thing that I'd like to ask you about, and this hadn't originally been part of what these interviews would be about, but the last two have been really interesting to hear both our athletes talk about it. And it's the importance of setting big goals. Now, from a perspective of an athlete and then a coach and everything else you're involved in, just kind of give us your thoughts and philosophies around goal setting in that realm.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, if you don't know where you're going or what you're going for, you're just going through the motions. So I'm a big believer in having a goal. As a player, I wanted to play Division I tennis, or I wanted to go pro. Okay, those are like pie in the sky, whatever. Well, what did I need to do to achieve these things? And then it became more defined. And I think that was something that I really learned in college was you don't just set this goal to be, I want to be a #1 player or whatever. I want to, how many wins was I going to have that season? How was I going to get a win? What did I have to do with my game to be able to achieve that success? And then we start working that back to saying, okay, well, where are the roadblocks in it, right? So I always say start big, and then you step it back into, okay, well, what are the roadblocks? 99% of the time for me, it was always mental as a player, right? Like in those earlier ages where it was like, okay, roadblock is I don't believe that I can win in the big moments. Okay, well, how do I win in the big moments? And so then we just rehearsed, right? You practice. I practiced those big moment plays over and over and over. I practiced the no-brainer shots over and over and over. I practiced what I would tell myself if it didn't go my way. I'd practice not crying after a match, So there's a lot that kind of came through with the playing side. I think I feel like it's a lot easier on the coaching side. And I say as a player, you're so emotionally invested, and I was emotionally invested as a coach, but not the same level. And so as a coach now, being on the other side of it, it's more important that I help set goals for our players and help walk them through that, because you can't see clearly when it's fuzzy, right? You're thinking so much about all your emotions are in the way. Where as a coach, I can now pull the emotion out and say, okay, well, we want to win a state title. Well, what is it going to take? And, a lot of it is you have to be in the situation to be able to win it. You've got to get through there, right? So level setting expectations. And then again, what can we do as a team to be ready for those moments?
So I do have to ask this out of my own curiosity's sake. So is the goal for Riverside High guys another state championship this spring?
The goal is always a state championship. I think I'm very realistic, and we've got a really talented group, but we've lost a good chunk of our lineup. And one of the things that I'm really trying to really kind of hone in on is we didn't just develop one season, right? We developed a program. We created a program. And so when you graduate players out, if you have the pipeline and the program, not because of the talent level, but because they've been there, they've seen it. We brought all our JV guys to that finals match because I want them to have that experience already, so that when it's their turn, we don't have to waste it on a practice round, right? Like we've already been in this situation, we've seen it already. So yes, ideally, realistically, there's some great competition out there. So I can't say yeah, that's a shoe-in, but I'm gonna have to work with this group, and some people are gonna step into bigger roles than they had last year.
There's a lot that our athletes, coaches, and audience can learn from your adversity, and that's our whole goal, is to be able to share these stories of how people overcame adversity and be able to use those to overcome them ourselves. So thank you so much, Heather, for sharing that.
I, again, appreciate everything about you, Heather, and you sharing your experiences. And I know we could keep asking from your playing to your coaching. But again, I think you just have highlighted that we need adversity in order to accomplish anything worthwhile. And yes, while it stinks that you had all those negative emotions at the top of that 10-meter platform, you needed that to propel your career, and you look back on it as a defining moment. Your athlete that broke his back, yes, I'm sure that stunk, but man, how that had to feel when he was holding that state championship trophy and has his ring now. It just makes it extra sweet. And I think that sometimes as athletes, coaches, and parents, we forget that. And so I appreciate you helping us all remember that we need those adversity moments to feel like we've accomplished something.
All
Thank
right.
you very much.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for being with us. Appreciate you sharing your message.
No, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us on Challenger Deep, Athletes Rising Above Adversity. We hope these stories inspire and equip you to tackle life's challenges head on. Don't forget to visit www.confidentathleteprogram.com/challengerdeep to get all of our free resources from the book, your copy of our book, and access to 2 free weeks of the Confident Athlete program. Remember, in life, adversity only visits the strong. It stays forever with the weak. Let's rise above together. See you next time.